Xiaomi 17 Ultra not only has a big 1-inch camera sensor, but it also has a continuous optical zoom. Both of these features are lacking on the vivo X300 Pro, but can the Vivo still beat the Xiaomi with its Zeiss processing over Xiaomi Leica style? I'm going to compare these two phones by testing the camera thoroughly and also do a battery and performance test. The Xiaomi 17 Ultra does have two main color modes, the Leica Vibrant and the Leica Authentic. Vivo has more options, but the main ones would be the Zeiss Natural and Zeiss Vibrant. Even though I do like the Zeiss Natural processing, for me the Xiaomi Leica Authentic mode is usually too contrasty. I do prefer Leica Vibrant mode, and therefore in this test I'll use the Vivo with the Zeiss Vibrant and Xiaomi with Leica Vibrant color mode. If you look at the back of the devices, you will notice that the Xiaomi camera bump is bigger, and the main reason is that the Xiaomi sensor size is larger. It is a 1-inch type sensor. When taking photos with the main lens, you will notice that the Xiaomi can create a slightly better background blur because of that, but the difference is by no means significant. The main difference, I would say, is more in color science, where the Vivo here is processing the pictures with raised shadows and a bit of green tone, while Xiaomi processing is more exposed with white balance leaning towards magenta. Which style you prefer is completely up to you, and I think both of them are doing an amazing job. Vivo usually is closer to reality though in terms of colors. Xiaomi usually has more boosted colors, and I did tell you before why I'm using Vibrance mode, because in Leica Authentic mode, it is just way too contrasty. The other difference is that Xiaomi in both Leica Authentic and Vibrance mode has a more magenta leaning, while Vivo is more green. That and the fact that Xiaomi photos are more exposed can make the Xiaomi photos look a bit more lively. For video with the main lens, they are close too. The Xiaomi is creating a stronger bokeh here with a more contrasty look. On the other hand, I would pick Vivo for better stabilization in the default mode, as the Xiaomi seems to suffer a bit from camera shakes. Usually, it is more difficult to stabilize a larger sensor, and that's why a real camera is often more shaky than a phone. The telephoto sensor on both phones has a similar size, but while Vivo has a fixed 85mm focal length, the Xiaomi has a continuous 75 to 100mm lens, meaning if you zoom from 3.2 to 4.3 times, you won't lose any optical quality. For example, here we have Vivo at 85mm and Xiaomi at 75mm zoom. As you can see, both are doing a great job, with the fact that Xiaomi is more exposed, and it is how it often processes the images. If we zoom in to around 100mm, you can see that the facial proportion of Maria's changes on Xiaomi because Vivo is still using the 85mm lens with a digital zoom, while Xiaomi is actually changing the focal length. You wouldn't notice the quality difference if you just look at the pictures normally though, and it needs a bit of pixel peeping to notice Xiaomi would have a better dynamic range because of the continuous zoom lens. That would especially be a nice addition to your phone camera when you are doing portrait photography in portrait mode, and if you plan to zoom more than 85mm, the Xiaomi will have a slight edge and also let you create pictures with different facial proportions. But for snapping pictures when you are on vacation like buildings or street photography, the advantages are rather limited. For video with the telephoto lens, they both have similar quality. The processing is different again, where the Xiaomi has an orangish tint on Maria's face. For mega zoom pictures, they both use AI to enhance the pictures. I would say Vivo is doing a slightly better job at it. You can use the telephoto lens for macro photography too. They are both doing an amazing job. The Vivo exposes the pictures slightly more in this mode, and Xiaomi retains highlights instead. The ultrawide sensor on both phones has a similar size. The f-stop on the Vivo is lower, which means it can gather more light. The Xiaomi has a wider field of view since it is 14mm instead of 15mm. On the other hand, I find Vivo doing much better processing and lens correction, as you can see in this picture. They both of course have a front selfie camera. And for selfies, I don't find a meaningful quality difference, but Vivo can fit more into the frame, which is always a nice thing. Another interesting thing I noticed while doing a street photography is that the Vivo usually tries to freeze the motion by picking a higher ISO, while Xiaomi picks a lower shutter speed. Therefore, if you look at the humans, or in this case horses, you will notice they are a bit blurry. But The shutter speed would be similar on both phones when you are taking photos of inanimated objects like a building. In this night picture, interestingly, despite Xiaomi having a larger sensor, Vivo is doing a better job with retaining details of the church in the back, while Xiaomi is blowing out the highlights. If you only take a picture of the church, they both have a great dynamic range. Xiaomi seemingly puts more emphasis on the human subject than the whole scene. You can see the same in the telephoto picture too, where the Xiaomi photos kind of ignore the background and try to expose for the face, whereas the Vivo tries to retain details in the background too. Overall, in night and low light photos, I didn't find a meaningful advantage of the 1-inch type sensor of Xiaomi in my tests. Even for videos, which is usually where larger sensors shows its advantages, I found Vivo to hold up well against Xiaomi, and the difference is negligible. And if you walk a bit and need the extra stabilization, the Vivo is doing a much better job in low light in video, whereas the Xiaomi video is going to be slightly shaky. On the software side, I bought both phones from Trading Shenzhen, and I'll put the link in the description. The Vivo is running Origin OS, while Xiaomi is running HyperOS. They are both based on Android, and you will probably get used to both in no time. Both have a great camera app. Xiaomi has this new cinema mode that you can use to take certain creative shots by taking advantage of the continuous zoom camera. Vivo also has a fantastic camera app, which I love especially for the film simulation modes and the street photography mode, where you can define presets for it. I exclusively use Vivo when I want to do a street photography because a phone draws less attention than a camera, and with its large telephoto lens, you can still capture photos without any problem from people and sceneries. For performance, the Vivo is sporting the MediaTek Dimensity 9500, while Xiaomi is running on the Snapdragon 8 Elite Generation 5. They are both great chipsets, and there is not a lot of performance difference between them. For example, in Geekbench, the Xiaomi will get a slightly better score in both single-core and multi-core. If you run the Wildlife Extreme benchmark though, which tests the graphic performance of the chipset, the Vivo will get a better score with 45 average frames per second, while Xiaomi runs at 38 frames per second. As I mentioned, both of these phones are the Chinese variants with higher battery capacity. The Xiaomi is 6800 mAh, while Vivo is 6510 mAh. But in my test that I've done with 5G, with around 4 hours of screen on time, the Vivo ended up with 56% battery, while the Xiaomi was left with 55%, which was interesting. I'm going to do a day in the life battery comparison with iPhone and Xiaomi soon, so if you want to help us to get to 100k subscribers and don't miss that video, maybe subscribe to the channel. Xiaomi is also a slightly larger phone. It is a 6.9-inch instead of 6.78-inch on the Vivo. They are both IP68-69 rated. At least the version I bought from Trading Shenzhen had a screen protector pre-installed, had a case in the box, and also a charger brick. They can both charge up to 90 watts wired. Overall, I found the vivo X300 Pro to be a solid option without many compromises. I picked it as the phone of the year last year, and I loved the Zeiss natural processing and the colors of the pictures, together with the film simulation and the street photography mode. The Xiaomi obviously has better camera hardware. The 1-inch type sensor can create a bit more bokeh, and the continuous optical zoom has its advantages and gives more freedom in photography and videography. Also, you may like Leica processing more than the Zeiss on the Vivo and the larger display, but I do find the videos to not have great stabilization, and it seems that despite the larger battery capacity, it is doing as good as Vivo, not better. If you enjoyed this video and want to see how Vivo compares to the Galaxy S25 Ultra, you can watch this video next. Thanks for tuning in to Tecmo, and I will see you in the next one.